Christian Men's Illustrated, the podcast. This is Pastor Jeremiah. So have you ever had a theory? You had like a theory, a biblical theory, spiritual theory, and then you read the Bible and you're like, oh, okay, good. This is what I thought was true that I should be doing. And it holds up biblically. So here's the encouragement I want to give you today is this: attempted obedience is better than disobedience. Okay, so attempted obedience is better than disobedience. So, as a pastor, I've connected with people throughout the years now. People like, which direction should I go? What does God want me to do? And there's just sometimes when we're pursuing God or we're wanting answers from God, like direct directions and answers from God that just aren't there. So you kind of got to go with the decision. You got to go with the choice. And so there's examples like in Acts where they said, it seems good to the Holy Spirit and to us. Like, I always took that passage like, okay, it doesn't seem like they had this definitive word from the Lord, but it's like, this seems good to the Holy Spirit that we would go in this direction. So let's follow God here. So that would be one example. But attempted, so like some people be like, let me give you an example. It'd be like, man, I hear a missionary speak at church and I'm so moved and I'm like, man, I should be a missionary to Africa and I want to go do missions. And maybe it's not necessarily what God is calling you to do, but you go ahead and sell all your stuff anyway. And then you go to Africa and you get there and you're there for like 6 months, a year, and you realize like, I don't know if this is what God really told me. I just got so excited at the moment. So my opinion, which I think is biblical, is that attempted obedience is better than disobedience. And God could work through your desire for obedience in a much greater way than he could ever move through your just disobedience. Let me give this biblical example. Stick with me. I'd love to read the whole chapter, but I don't want you to get bored, okay? Here it is in 2 Chronicles chapter 30. Now this is backdrop. This is Hezekiah is in the kingship and he is getting the people to return to and obey the law of the Lord and trying to bring this sense of unity to the people of God. Like, we need to follow God. So it says the couriers went from town to town in Ephraim and Manasseh as far as Zebulun, but people scorned and ridiculed them. Nevertheless, some from Asher, Manasseh, and Zebulun humbled themselves and went to Jerusalem. Also in Judah, the hand of God was on the people to give them unity of mind to carry out what the king and his officials had ordered, following the word of the Lord. A very large crowd of people assembled in Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of unleavened bread in the second month. So he's getting them together to worship God, to have this festival. Verse 14, they removed the altars in Jerusalem and cleared away the incense altars and threw them into the Kidron Valley. So he's removing the ungodly things and he's calling people to godliness and to celebrate the Lord, all right? They slaughtered the Passover, so they're getting ready to celebrate the Passover. Lamb on the 14th day of the second month. The priests and the Levites were ashamed and consecrated themselves and brought burnt offering to the temple of the Lord. Then they took up their regular positions as prescribed in the law of Moses, the man of God. The priests splashed against the altar the blood handed to them by the Levites. Since many in the crowd had not consecrated themselves, the Levites had to kill the Passover lambs for all those who were not ceremonially clean and could not consecrate their lambs to the Lord. Sorry, I'm a little sloppy in my reading. Get it dialed in here, Jeremiah. Verse 18, although most of the many people who came from Ephraim, Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had not purified themselves, yet they ate the Passover contrary to what was written. Okay, so pay attention to that. They weren't supposed to eat it, but they ate it anyway. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, may the Lord who is good pardon everyone who sets their heart on seeking God, the Lord, the God of their ancestors, even if they are not clean according to the rules of the sanctuary. And the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people. Okay, so here's the point that I'm trying to get at today, is they weren't following the law as it was written. They were kind of botching some things. But here's what Hezekiah does. He prays to God and he's like, God, please forgive them. I know we're not doing this whole thing exactly as you has prescribed it, but God, we're doing this because we realize we need you as a people, that we need to return to you, that we need to put you first in our lives once again. So Hezekiah prays, God, forgive them. And he says, God, here's why I want you to forgive them, is because their hearts are set on you. Their hearts are now set on, we weren't before, but we're repenting and we're getting our hearts right and we're getting our hearts set on you. And so here's the moral of the story, is that God forgives them because he sees their desire to obey them. He sees that their hearts are set on him. So maybe they don't have it maybe they're not doing it 100% correctly, but their hearts are right, and their hearts are set on obeying and following Jesus Christ. So here's my teaching. Attempted obedience is better than disobedience. So they could have just kept on in a state of disobedience. They could have not obeyed God. They could have kept up the idols and Asherah poles, but they removed them. And they could have bypassed celebrating God, but they said, we need to get right with God. We need to follow God. We need to obey him. And so they did what was right. And so they began to obey, even though it wasn't perfect, even though it wasn't as prescribed by the law. Hezekiah prays and God says, okay, God, please forgive them. I know they're not doing it right, but they're attempting to obey you. And God says, okay, he heals them, and he doesn't hold that against them. So if I could give you any lesson, not any lesson, but if I could give you one lesson today, it's that encouragement, that attempted obedience is better than disobedience. I'd rather have you today. God would rather have you attempt to obey him. God would rather have your heart be set on him today. And maybe you make mistakes. Maybe you don't do it right. Maybe you don't live the day perfectly. But that was your intention. That was your desire. And that was your heart. So number one, we got to start with for our actions, we start with the heart, right? Is my heart right with God? Is my heart set on following Jesus Christ today? And then you go with it. So, sometimes in life, we're going to go throughout the course of the day, and God's not giving us minute step-by-step instructions throughout the day. We're not hearing his voice every second of every day. That's okay. But we just say, God, okay, today, the desire of my heart is to follow you and to obey you. And I'm going to try to do that throughout this day. And maybe we get to the end of the day and we're like, man, I didn't do all of that correctly, but my intention, my attempt, and my desire was to follow Jesus Christ. So there you go. You got it, guys. Attempted obedience is better than disobedience. And God can work through your desire and your attempt to obey him much better than he ever could through your disobedience. Food for thought. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.